Hey there, fellow collectors and comic enthusiasts. Welcome back to another thrilling edition of the top 10 comics to invest in before it's too late. As always, I'm your host, Drew Stewart, and today we're diving headfirst into 10 collectible Silver Age comics. Now, before we jump into the list, I have to confess something. We're stepping beyond the realm of just numbers and market trends. We're going to explore the stories behind the comics, the iconic moments frozen in ink and paper that define the very essence of our favorite characters. We'll uncover some forgotten gems, some long-lost classics, and even a few of those must-have comics that every collector dreams of adding to their prized collection. But remember, this isn't just about owning these books. It's about embracing their significance, their impact, and preserving the tangible connection to the legacies that they represent. So buckle up and prepare to embark on a thrilling adventure as we unveil the top 10 comics to invest in before it's too late for the spring of 2023. Let's kick off this top 10 list with a bit of classic TV rerun nostalgia, courtesy of Gold Key's Space Family Robinson #1. Cover dated for December 1962, Space Family Robinson was a spin-off of the classic tale The Swiss Family Robinson, but as the name suggests, it was set in space. The issue's cover was painted by George Wilson, while Del Connell and Dan Spiegel handled the interior stories and art respectively. The history for this title is a little bit complicated, as it shares many similarities with the classic CBS TV series Lost in Space, which ran from 1965 to 1968 originally. Though the comic book predated the show, it was good old-fashioned business that helped the comic and the TV show coexist. You see, Irwin Allen, who was a producer of the Lost in Space TV show, was also involved in another project that Gold Key was publishing, a tie-in comic series for Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea. Gold Key and CBS worked out a deal, and starting with issue number 15, Space Family Robinson would be known as Space Family Robinson Lost in Space. eBay is full of some rather overpriced copies of this book right now. Realistically, a nice raw copy at fair market price should set you back between $200 and $300. Unfortunately, there's not much to go on when it comes to graded copies at the moment, as only 4 copies have sold this year, so comps are pretty thin. The high water mark was set back in February when the Pacific Coast Pedigree copy, which was a CGC 7.5, sold for $788, but the most recent sale was just earlier this week in a 1.8 grade, which went for only $47. I'm generally pretty quick to overlook Dell and Gold Key issues, but there have been more than a few issues from these publishers that have garnered some interest in the hobby over the last year or two. Maybe it's time we give Dell and Gold Key a little more attention. Now let's hop over to the #9 book, a classic Silver Age Marvel issue that has more than enough to pique your interest. Fighting its way into the #9 spot is Fantastic Four #25. The cover really sells the story for this one, and after first facing off in Fantastic Four #12, the ever-loving Blue-Eyed Thing and the Incredible Hulk are going at it once again. But this time around, the fight is front and center on the issue's cover, which is of course from the King himself, Jack Kirby. There's more to this issue than just a fight though. Also appearing in this April 1964 issue is a freshly defrosted Captain America, who's making only his second appearance in the Silver Age. And the story, with the spectacularly clever title, The Incredible Hulk vs. the Thing, was written by Stan Lee. This is also, just generally speaking, a great Silver Age FF to add to your collection. It's got a great cover, a fun story, and some notable appearances, and it's not a complete bank buster. Mid-grade raw copies can be found in the neighborhood of $400 to $500, and recent sales of graded copies have seen prices moderate as well, making this classic Lee and Kirby issue more accessible. Recent sales include a CGC 7.0 at $795, a CGC 5.5 selling for $552, and a CGC 2.5 that went for just $200, and all of these were sold in May 2023. So if this one catches your eye, find a grade that fits your budget and let the hunt begin. Now, let's take a quick break from the top 10 so I can tell you about a special promotion that's going on with one of our affiliate partners right now. Through June 18th, my regular 10% discount code with BCW supplies is being doubled, so you can save a massive 20% on your next order of BCW supplies. Just type in the discount code COMOCOMICS when you're checking out for your discount. Be cooler than me and save that 20%. I just placed a big order last month, and that extra 10% would have gone a long way. So check out the description below for my affiliate link, which if you use that is a great way for you to support the channel and save some money at the same time. Do we have any DC fans out there? Well, how about we talk about a book that would plant the seed for the biggest event in the history of DC Comics nearly 20 years before that event came to fruition. In the number 8 spot is Green Lantern number 40. This issue was cover dated for October 1965, which for perspective is the same month that Disney bought 27,000 acres of land down in Florida for what would become Disney World. Green Lantern 40 introduced the notion of infinite Earths to the DC universe. Beyond that, Krona makes his first appearance, and we also learn the origin of the Guardians. And did I mention that on top of all that, if that wasn't enough, the Golden Age Green Lantern, Alan Scott, and the Silver Age Green Lantern, Hal Jordan, team up against Krona? This 23-page story from John Broome is absolutely loaded, and one of my favorite artists, Gil Kane, handles both the cover and interior art for this issue. A couple of $100 should get you a pretty decent raw copy of this one, while over on the graded side, there is a crazy amount of price compression. In the most recent 90 days, the spread between a CGC 3.0 and a CGC 7.5 is only $237. The last sale of a 3.0 was just $47, while a 7.5 is currently averaging a value of only $284 in the last 90 days. But the last sale was actually even a few dollars cheaper than that. So once you hit 8.0, the value really jumps up, with the most recent sale coming in at $600 back in March. If you really want to get into a high-grade copy, 2023 has seen sales in 9.2 and 9.4 for $1,260 and $1,804 respectively, which, when you think about it, seems really affordable for 9.2 plus copies of a 1965 DC key. In the number 7 spot, we have the origin of one of Marvel's biggest and baddest villains. And while Galactus may have debuted in the Fantastic Four, for his backstory, we have to find our way over to Thor 169. Cover dated for October 1969, this issue of Thor has a superstar team-up for the cover art, as Jazzy John Romita Sr. provided the image of Thor in the center of the cover, while Kirby handled the extremely Kirby-like background for the rest of the cover art. On the inside, this late Silver Age issue featured the usual Stan Lee and Jack Kirby pairing as we dive deep into the past of the World Eater Galactus. While the first appearance of Galactus in FF49 has been coming down in price lately, it's still pretty pricey for some collectors. Now, to me, if I can't afford the first appearance of a character, their origin story is generally one of the next places I like to turn. For instance, a CGC 8.0 copy of FF49, again Galactus' first appearance, is going to cost you in the neighborhood of $3,000 right now, while at the same time, a CGC 8.0 copy of Thor 169, Galactus' origin story, will only run you $200. Honestly, anything under an 8.0 should be less than $150 on the graded side, so unless you just prefer a raw copy, this one seems to make a lot of sense as a slab. Raw mid-grade copies right now will run you between $75 and $125 or so. So if that's the direction you want to go, hop on it. The number 6 book is one that's on my personal shopping list and one of the few non-Batman Silver Age DC books that I really want to have in my collection. Adventure Comics 283. Cover dated for April 1961, this issue of Adventure introduces the Phantom Zone and the always awful General Zod. If you're not familiar with the Phantom Zone, it's essentially purgatory in the DC universe. It's described as an interdimensional realm outside the normal space-time continuum, a timeless dimension, a vast expanse of near nothingness, according to the DC database. And Zod, well, you've seen the movies. He's a Kryptonian, He was mad and dangerous before being banished to the negative zone, and his time there really didn't make him any cuddlier. DC heavy hitter Curt Swan provides the cover art, while the story, titled The Phantom Superboy, was written by Robert Bernstein and drawn by George Papp. A low-grade raw copy of this one will cost you a couple $100, with several copies available on eBay at the moment, surprisingly. Notable recent sales of graded copies include a pair of sales in CGC 7.5, which average out to $850 in the last 90 days, while a pair of sales in CGC 5.5 have averaged out to $454 in that same time frame. One of the most spec'd upon characters of the last year was Doctor Doom. FF5 went nuts, along with just about every other Doctor Doom book that you can think of. And when I think of budget-friendlier Doom books that might sync up nicely with the MCU, the number 5 book, Avengers 25, is at the top of my list. The February 1966 issue of The Avengers is the first meeting of the Avengers and Doctor Doom, and on top of that, it features a classic Silver Age Jack Kirby cover. Kirby uses one of his go-to approaches when it came to the cover, as Doom is significantly oversized, making him look quite imposing to the Avengers, which have assembled in opposition to him. Inside we find a Stan Lee story titled Enter Doctor Doom, which was drawn by Don Heck. Mid-grade copies are currently going for a couple of $100, and on the graded side, mid-grade copies are currently going for a couple of $100 on the graded side, with raws coming in slightly under that. Though, if you're a budget-minded collector, low-grade raw copies can be had for well under $100. And as for notable slab sales, a CGC 8.0 sold for $541 last month, which is below both the 2022 and 12-month averages, but still more than double than that 2021 average sales price, which came in at just $273. A pair of CGC 8.5 sold for an average of $448 in the last 90 days. And additionally, a 9.2 copy sold for $1,680, also in May of 2023. There are plenty of Silver Age Doom books out there for a Fantastic Four fan, but for the Avengers fan or the MCU fan, I think this is one of the best. While many of the classic Universal Monsters creatures were quickly introduced into the comics world, some even as early as the 1930s, there was one highly regarded monster that came along later, well, after the likes of Frankenstein's monster and Dracula shocked moviegoers anyway. The creature from the Black Lagoon was a late addition to the Universal Monsters stable, and while the movie came out in 1954, it would be 7 long years before the creature, or the Gill-Man as he's also known, broke into the world of comics in our number 4 book, Jughead number 79. You're shocked, right? A Universal monster debuted in an Archie book? As odd as that may seem, that is the case. In fact, there are actually several great monster or sci-fi or otherwise spooky themed Archie covered books, with this one probably being one of the most desirable. Cover dated for December 1961, this issue would have been found on the newsstand at the same time as Fantastic Four number 1. Prices for this issue are kind of hard to lock down, as it's generally not that common. A raw, good copy sold on eBay for $350 in March 2023, while the only reporting sale on GPA is for a CGC 3.5 that sold for $699 in May of 2023. So if this is a book you'd like to add to your PC, I'd be sure to save up at least $500, load up on patience, and hope to find a decent looking lower grade copy. If you want something in the mid-range or even higher, then be ready to drop 4 figures. Every once in a while when I'm at a show, there will be this random book that pops up that seems like everybody's looking for. Earlier this spring that happened, and that book is our number 3 book, X-Men number 35. This August 1967 issue of X-Men finds the mutant team and your friendly neighborhood Spider-Man meeting for the very first time. This easily recognizable cover art was provided by Dan Adkins, while the story titled Along Came a Spider was written by Roy Thomas and drawn by Werner Roth. In addition to the first meeting that I just mentioned, X-Men 35 is also the second appearance of the X-Man Banshee and the first appearance of a mutant called Changeling. Now, if you grew up watching the X-Men animated series on Fox like I did, then you would recognize this character as Morph. Alternate versions of Changeling as Morph appear in both the X-Men animated series comic adaptation and then later on in the Exiles series that was released in 2001. Collectible raw copies in and around the VG grade range have been selling between $75 and $150 on eBay recently, which is quite similar to recent graded sales prices in comparable grades. There have been several sales in CGC 5.5, 6.0, and 7.0 in the last 90 days, with the 7.0 grade being the only one of the three with an average sales price that is increasing up to $378 compared to a 12-month average of only $359. The last sale of a CGC 7.0 was last month and it went for $408. 8.0 and 8.5 copies are hovering between $500 and $600, but we see a significant jump in value at 9.0 as the most recent sale in 9.0 went for $900, while a CGC 9.2 sold for $2,750 in May of 2023 as well. When the first appearance blows out your budget, there are a couple of other issues of significance I like to check down to. Sometimes it's the character's first cover appearance, their origin issue like we talked about earlier, the first issue of their solo title series, or even their second appearance. And that's the case for our number 2 book, Detective Comics 373. Cover dated for March 1968, Detective 373 is just the second appearance of the Bat villain Mr. Freeze. And the best part about this appearance is that he's actually called Mr. Freeze this time. Remember, 9 years before that, when this character made his first appearance in Batman 121, he was called Mr. Zero. Unfortunately, it would be another 25 years before Mr. Freeze's character design was truly perfected in Batman the Animated Series. So, unfortunately, we had to endure some pretty goofy looking outfits over the years, this one included. Unlike Batman 121, which has a fairly solid value bottom around that $1,000 mark, Detective 373 is significantly more affordable. Very collectible raw copies can be purchased for under $100 right now, and VF or better copies will set you back under $500. Shifting over to graded copies, there have only been 8 sales in the last 90 days as of the recording of this video. At the bottom end, a CGC 2.5 sold for $175 in April 2023, and at the top, a pair of CGC 8.5s sold for an average of $423. The most recent sale of a graded copy was that of a CGC 8.0 that sold earlier this week for $370. Swinging into the top spot on the spring comics to invest in before it's too late list is a personal favorite of mine, Amazing Spider-Man 100. When I was set up at a show last weekend, I had a conversation with a customer and they were talking about how they never see ASM 100 anymore, and it hit me that I agree, they're kind of right. I used to always have a couple of copies of ASM 100 floating around. For one thing, it's one of my absolute favorite John Romita Sr. covers, and who doesn't love a classic anniversary issue? It's been a while since I've had an ASM 100 personally on my wall, and now that I think about it, it's been a while since I've really just seen many around. Did they all dry up as Spider-Verse was heating up due to spec about a 6-armed Spider-Man maybe? Or could it be that a lot of the other classic Silver Age covers have priced themselves out of consideration for collectors, and this is just the next classic cover that people have checked down to? Honestly, I think that pound for pound, ASM 100 is one of the most affordable, iconic Silver Age covers out there right now. You can get mid to high grade raw copies of this issue between $100 and $200 in the current market. In the last 90 days, the most sales in a single grade has been that of an 8.0 with a total of 10 sales. Those sales average just $312. You can bump up to a CGC 9.0 and still be under a $500 price tag, as the 90-day average in grade is just $469. In fact, the price doesn't really jump until you hit 9.6, which is where the most recent sale was $2,040 earlier this month. If you're a Spidey fan, then this one is a must-have. But, like I said, I think it's a great value all around right now, even if you're not a big fan of Spider-Man. Well, we finally wrapped up our crowded, at least for us, spring convention schedule, and I'm looking forward to getting back on track with the content schedule. So I hope you're ready for some top 10 on a budget list, some new collector series spotlights, and maybe even a few episodes of keys for every budget videos in the near future. Of course, I've still got the 10K video to post so that we can get some of those great prizes out to you all. And that reminds me, a big congrats to Ronald Honow. Forgive me if I mispronounced your name there, but he was our winner for the Comic Shell giveaway. I really hope you enjoy it. Beyond that, I hope you're all having a great start to your summer. Collect responsibly, and I'll see you in the next video.